understanding recoil, understanding movement in a slower paced tactical shooter, understanding I'd say at least intermediate to advanced strategies of S&D and how to think like an S&D player, and then understanding economy, I think you'll set yourself up to come into Valorant not inhibited by the mechanical barriers that I think a lot of players might be. Okay, so I feel like I need to preface this video with like, if you are a CSGO pro or you've been playing CSGO for a long time, or tactical shooters, if you're like familiar with this genre of shooter, like really familiar and have experienced grinding it and ranking up and a lot of the mechanics of it, this video is not for you, because this video is definitely going to be geared towards like newer players, because like I think the thing is like we're going to be talking about Valorant, and Valorant is it's a brand new game, and I think that's the one edge that it's really going to have over other tactical shooters like CSGO and the various others throughout the scene. Because the thing about Valorant is that it's coming out at a time where the marketing is going to reach new players and it's going to be free to play. So like what we're looking at is we have like a whole demographic of like these Fortnite kids and Overwatch kids and people that have come up in the past few years who maybe haven't gotten into hardcore shooters like CSGO like years and years ago. A lot of teenagers who really enjoy FPS games, but they're not familiar with the hardcore competitive tactical shooter genre. So in this video, I pretty much just want to talk about like essentially exactly what I'm going to be doing and what I think you can do to prepare for Valorant. Because the thing is, like, it sounds really cool to be like, yes, I'm going to grind the hell out of Valorant. I'm going to go pro in Valorant right off the bat. And obviously we're all kind of joking about that. We know that it's going to take a lot of hard work to rank up in that game. But the thing is, I don't think a lot of players, especially casual players who are just like, that game looks really cool. I don't think a lot of them realize what it takes to be really good in a tactical shooter, because there are a few things that I think are really hard to get used to, that you really need to learn and practice, that are not prevalent in games like Overwatch or Fortnite or any other esport, at least in the FPS genre. So, but I've come up with just a few things. These are basic things that, you know, like I said, if you're really into games like CSGO, this video is not for you. But the first thing I think you should do if you want to get ready for Valorant and you don't want to get wrecked right off the bat is download Counter-Strike Global Offensive, because this game, Valorant, is going to be so much closer to CSGO than Overwatch. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much closer to CSGO it's going to be. And that's not just because of the gameplay style in terms of like the rounds and the S&D, you know, bomb defusal type of gameplay. It's more because like I think a lot of people are seeing the art style and the abilities and like, yeah, it's a lot like Overwatch, you know, this game will take Overwatch's mantle. Overwatch is dead anyway. But like that's so not the case, because this game is going to be so much more gunplay centric, and some of the mechanics that people aren't used to that are in games like Counter-Strike that I believe will be in games like Valorant are mechanics that FPS players are not used to. If you play Call of Duty, Overwatch, Fortnite, you are mechanically great, I'm sure, but you're not going to be ready for some of the things that Valorant is going to bring to the table. And that's things like, the first thing you should do is download CSGO, and don't try to rank up. You don't need to worry about going pro. But what you do want to do is you want to learn what it's like to have limited movement. Learn what it's like to have limited movement and how to move within that. Because like in games like Counter-Strike and Valorant, movement is very nuanced. There's a lot of math that goes into how the movement is calculated, your speed and your accuracy of gun. And we don't know exactly how detailed that's going to be for Valorant, but they are making Valorant with this type of highly competitive play in mind, I believe. So I think it's safe to expect that. I think from what we've seen so far in the gameplay videos that they've released, I think it exhibits a lot of those characteristics. So the thing you want to look at is like how to move, things like how to peek corners, how to AD strafe. And I don't mean AD strafe like you would in like a Call of Duty game where you just go back and forth. How to really time your shots for peeking those corners. How to play around the movement of switching back to your knife, from your gun to your knife, and how you move faster when that's the case. The next thing you want to look at is S&D. If you play Call of Duty, you might have some experience in S&D. Otherwise, there aren't a ton of other games that run it other than Counter-Strike. And in Counter-Strike, that is pretty much the main game mode. You need to learn the basics of S&D. And I would say even go past the basics of S&D. They do apply across the board, in my opinion, to all shooters that have that game mode. Search and Destroy is a pretty universal game mode, and the depth varies from game. Like Call of Duty, S&D depth might be a little different than something like Counter-Strike, but I think those general mechanics really will apply here. So learn S&D, learn the basics of it, but also learn the nuances of map positioning and how to think like an S&D player. It's not necessarily about learning how to dominate S&D in the game that you're practicing on, but learn how to play S&D in your mind. Think how you move, think about timing, think about how players are spread out, what are good options, like think about how the enemy thinks. That's going to help you have a massive leg up. If you're used to more arcade style FPS games, you're not going to be used to the slower pace of S&D where you only have one life and that's all that counts. So definitely work on S&D notes. The next thing is recoil. I think recoil is going to turn a lot of people off right off the bat. At least the people that are gung-ho that don't pay attention to, the landscape of esports and Counter-Strike and Valorant, because it looks like a fun shooter. But if recoil is anything like it is in Counter-Strike, in Valorant, it's going to be jarring for people to get used to, because a lot of people are used to recoil actually taking your gun's reticle up or down or sideways with the recoil. But in games like Counter-Strike and Valorant, from what I can tell from these gameplay videos they've released, they do not do that. You have to account for that on your own. So the bullet will start to move differently, but the recoil is your actual gun's reticle is not going to change as much. So you need to get used to the recoil shooting away from the gun's reticle. So you need to learn to account for that. And that's something that actually takes a bit of time and a good bit of practice, which is why I say go ahead and do that now. If you don't know what to do to get ready for Valorant, if you want to rank up in Valorant early on, learn what it's like to understand recoil patterns like that and to fire with them, because I think that a lot of that is going to translate over from CSGO to Valorant when it comes out. So, and then the final thing that I think is really important is go ahead and familiarize yourself with how economy works in Counter-Strike, because obviously there will be nuances to the Valorant economy system. You're going to have to buy your weapons, your buy nades, buy your armor, whatever it is that they offer. But there's a lot of nuance in pro Counter-Strike that I don't think a lot of casual viewers would notice. There's a lot of nuance that goes into how you buy your weapons across the rounds and how you disperse the weapons and give weapons to your friends and nades and how the money works. It's not the most complex thing, but I think if you come in blind and you've never seen a system like this before or never played within it, I think it's really important to learn. And I think if you come in with those 4 things: recoil, understanding movement in a slower paced tactical shooter, understanding I'd say at least intermediate to advanced strategies of S&D and how to think like an S&D player, and then understanding economy, I think you'll set yourself up to come into Valorant not inhibited by the mechanical barriers that I think a lot of players might be. If you come over just from Overwatch and you're a Mercy main, you're going to have a lot of mechanical barriers because it's not going to save you. That holding that left click beam is not going to save you. So, but I think if you come in with those mechanics kind of ironed out right off the bat, I think they're going to translate really quickly over to Valorant. Obviously, there will be some differences between games. I'm not saying that Valorant is a Counter-Strike copy or anything, but I think the general genre of a tactical shooter is one that a lot of the newer generation of players, like Fortnite players, Overwatch players, and console Call of Duty players, or people who are just getting into PC gaming, I don't think they're going to be quite as ready for that style of gameplay. And honestly, like everyone is doing on Twitch right now, switching over to Counter-Strike for a little bit, and don't worry about going pro. It's going to be hard because those guys are already established. There's a lot of depth to that game that you don't need to memorize, especially if that's not your game. But spending a little bit of time learning those mechanics and ironing them out is going to make it so that when you walk into Valorant, you're learning Valorant. You're not learning a tactical shooter. And I think that's something that's really important. That's something I'm going to be doing as well. I've played CSGO, familiar with a lot of things in CSGO, but like honing those skills, I think that's going to be what takes you to the top faster. If you come in ready to go, because there are going to be a lot of pros and a lot of streamers and just general like veterans of the tactical shooter genre that are going to come over to Valorant and they're going to start dominating real quick. And I don't want people to be dejected when that happens. So yeah, I think that wraps up most of my tips about this. I think you'll be off on a really good foot if you follow through with these few things. So yeah, if you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube. Until then, till next time.